been helping Dad on the farm for as long as I can remember. A couple years ago, a piece of ground came up for rent that me and my brother rented together and used Dad's equipment and farmed it for a couple years. And then this last year, my uncle decided to retire, which him and my dad farmed together. And so my brother and I bought him out. And so last year was our first year as Becker Family Farms, which was me and my brother and my dad. In fact, when I was little, we had cows and raised our own calves and have a feedlot over there that we would feed them out. So we had them from birth all the way up to being fat, and had and hogs at the same time. We had farrowing houses and stuff, and raised our own pigs and fattened them up and sold them. And it just kind of has gotten to where everybody's getting rid of the least profitable side of what they're doing. And there's guys that have strictly went to cattle, and there's guys that have. What we did for years was we quit feeding them out to fat, and we raised the calves and then put a little bit of weight on them and sold them, and then they ended up going out to Kansas or somewhere to a feedlot to be finished out. And till about 6 years ago, we had rented our hog house out to start out at MFA hogs, and then we were raising pigs for them that they brought feeder pigs to us, and we just fattened them up, and then they got out of the business. And so at the same time, that's kind of when we got out of the hog business completely. Our building was getting wore out, and it wasn't big enough for some of the bigger hog people like Cargill and stuff like that they didn't want to have to deal with us. They're looking for the 1,000 head and bigger facilities, and we could hold 300 or 400 head at a time. And so it just kind of worked out that way, and we didn't want to invest a bunch of money at the time on building a big house, and we got out of them. So pretty much go big or you get out of it. And we've talked about, my brother and I both like hogs, and we've talked about raising a few pigs and maybe 20 or 30 pigs and trying to sell them locally and doing some of the farm raised meat. And some people are doing some of that stuff like that too, but for the most part, you either gotta, seems like you gotta specialize in the calf side of it or the fat side, or go big and do it all. And it's kind of the way it's kind of gotten to be. This my dad owns. Him and my uncle owned around 300 acres together. When my uncle retired, they split it up, and then he got half of it that we rent from him now, and then Dad kept the other half. And then last year, some of the ground that we've been farming come up for sale, and I bought a 40 of that. My brother bought a 40, and then Dad bought another 40 of that as well, which is all over here actually. So they've owned this piece for probably 30 years or so, and then all the bins and all that, those sheds over there are ground that they've been renting.
It's important to keep these small communities alive, and it's going to take people that are under 35 that are bringing children to this community. And so I've tried to pull in young folks to be more involved, especially in our young farmers and ranchers, or maybe it is our cattlemen's group, our farm bureau group, our pork producers group that says these things should be important to you that we're working on. So get involved, get your hands dirty, and get to know people. A community is important to a person when they know the people that are a part of that community. Andrew and I haven't been married that long, so we've been married about 4 years, coming back from college. His father-in-law farmed before that. But you think about scale of farm compared to what they were when John Hawthorne first started to what they are now. And also what the needs of a farmer are. Andrew keeps track of our books electronically about 90% of the time. So we talk about rural internet fiercely because we need it. And I need it not only for my farm equipment, but also for my job. Oftentimes I end up driving from home, which is 15 miles out of town, to McDonald's to send an email because my internet's kind of wishy-washy. It's 10 times better than what it used to be. But again, when I talk about those small rural communities growing, we have to have that opportunity for our economy to grow. So we can't be left in the dust.
I taught high school ag 6 years in North Dakota, and then decided that my wife and I decided that we needed a change, and so we first moved to Iowa State and finished a degree at Iowa State, and then I watched some of the different things that were going on during that time. I mean, the 80s were not really a good time for agriculture. It was a tough time. We lost a lot of farms. And I mean, be that as it is, I mean, that's what went down. And then job opened here, so then I started working here in actually January of 1987. So now I still get back up, on the home farm with my brother occasionally. It's not like I'm up there every year, though. I mean, it's a pretty good drive for me, like 1,050 miles one way. The thing that I would encourage many to think about is to head over to St. Louis. You may sound like I'm advertising. I have nothing to do with this group called Info Ag. I don't. But I'm attending that conference this year. It's in July, and it'll be at Union Station. And that's where I'm going to see all the latest kinds of technology, and it's going to help me maintain and keep abreast of what kinds of things the students are going to need in the classroom. The one that I'm looking at that isn't quite at the same level, but really there's a lot of information to be followed up on, and that's really the livestock industry itself. I mean, for example, if an animal is in the backyard or out on the pasture, whichever, if the animal shows certain kinds of traits, certain kinds of movement patterns and such, I mean, it might be close to, in the case of a cow, it could be close to calving. Or it could be ready for some other kinds of activities. It may be such that it's exhibiting a sign that it's some kind of hurt to a foot or something like this due to something that the animal has stepped on. Well, that information, we're going to have to be creative about how we bring that back and how we collect that data. But we're going to have to be creative on all of it anyway. Ultimately, what I would like to see is that when you even in the middle of the field, make no difference, you'd have great internet access. Well, as we know in rural Missouri, there's places where you're lucky if your cell phone works, much less are you able to get access. And of course, all those guys that are putting those things together, they're not so concerned about the data. They just want to make sure you can make a phone call, because that's really what they're billing you for, is the use of that telephone.